It's half past Brexit. And where is Brexit? I got on the Eurostar and travelled to Belgium, Brussels, first time ever under the English Channel. And I thought in the 1980s when they were talking about building a tunnel under the Channel was an utter waste of money, but I've changed my mind. I got to Brussels on Turner's Travels in 2 hours from London. So I've come to visit a place called Brexit, and this is in Brussels, the Parliament building. And I am a Brexiteer, and I'm going to tell you a bit about why I think I'm a Brexiteer for sure. I can remember when in the 1980s and 1990s we were the common market, and the joke was, I thought the common market was a car boot sale. That was the joke. But the common market turned into the European Union, and it's morphed from 8 rich countries to include 28 countries of varying wealth. And we had this referendum, and before the referendum, Europe was only the 8th most discussed political topic. We would have a laugh and a half about the curvature of bananas, and Europe meant nothing to us, it was bureaucratic. And when we had the referendum, I was very surprised about the passion that it stirred up. And I was naive. I thought that when we had the referendum, I thought that we who wanted to leave would lose. And I looked upon the referendum like a football match. We won 5-4, we'll say, to leave, and the losers of the football match say nothing. And I was absolutely overwhelmed when that 48% of the population of Britain who lost started to create a rumpus and make obstacles to make it very difficult to leave, which I thought trashed democracy. So we've got this prolonged state of affairs where dictators can laugh at British democracy because they'll say, given democracy, if they don't like the result, they'll want another vote so they get the vote they want and the result they want. Now, I voted to leave the EU because I'm very concerned about population density. We've got a net increase of population in Britain, about 250,000 extra more mouths to feed every year. Just a little interjection here. On the left hand side is the building where Theresa May was always visiting, and here we've got the Commission building on the right side. Now, migrants are fantastic. They've proved that there's always been jobs in the United Kingdom because they came over and created jobs. They were teaching us how to get rid of unemployment. They invented jobs like cleaning cars. And they were creative and hard-working. And the government tells us migration is great for the economy. That's okay if you are a captain of industry and you own a company and you're making money and you're hiring labour. But the economy, the growth of economy doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And I'm saying money versus quality of life. If we want to just keep developing the economy and pouring people into the country from many countries around the world, covering grass with concrete, we are paying an environmental cost for development. And that is something you can think about. Development versus the environment. But I call for controlled numbers because we're on the verge of overcrowding, and geography specialists define overcrowding as where you put pressures and shortages on services such as schools, places, queues for doctors and dentists. So I'm really into population density, which not many people speak about on the media, in the media. We're told, oh, don't worry about population density. We've got 2 people the size of a rugby pitch. But even children in school know the weakness of that statistic because most of the land is privately owned. It said on the news the other day that 1% of the people of Britain own half of the land in England, I should say. 1% owning half of the land in England. And children know that 2 people sharing a rugby pitch isn't quite as good as it sounds because you've got private land, fields, reservoirs, uninhabitable land like tops of mountains, And some folk think we've got plenty of room for housing, but we've got to build a house every 7 seconds. And the pressure on property means that property prices are going to increase. And Alan Johnson, the former MP, said, oh, don't worry, if I wake up one day and there's 70 million in the population in this country, I won't lose sleep over it. Well, I'm starting to worry, because when I was a boy, population was 54 million, but it's now 64 million in this country. And it's the settlement the size of Hull has to be created to assimilate this population every year. National Health Service. We've got to recruit more people from foreign countries, so we're stripping to threadbare status countries like Sierra Leone, the Philippines, where we're taking their trained medical staff and they are left with a shortage of medical staff to treat the people in their own country. And in this country, in Britain, 35% will have to rent after 1995. And in Canada, due to the population falling, property prices are falling. Now, in Britain, we have slipped down the Human Development Index rankings from position 14 to 16, which is not a good sign. Now, the Remainers in this referendum said they didn't vote to be poorer, but I did. I voted to leave at any cost. I like the idea of having an independent country where we can have our own laws and our own money. Now, the referendum was won by 1.4 million, and I naively thought that when we won the referendum that the losers would say nothing, the government would carry on business as normal, and a quiet team of people would get us out of Europe on the quiet, and it would be straightforward and discreetly done, not having all this argument and hassle. Now, to me, out means out. You don't have an agreement by Theresa May where we're joined at the hip. Out means out. You don't leave school and go back every Monday because you don't like the outside world. Now, what the EU shows us, and the difficulty in leaving, is this: that it is so difficult to leave that no country should surrender its sovereignty and lose its independence and be tied up virtually forever. Now that we're all leaving, we should all work together to ensure that we make the right choice and to be better off as a free nation, which is able to trade with the world, make our own laws and control our own population numbers, where quality of life and not just economic features will be in the British psyche. And we should all pull together. And when we all pull together, we might pull at different times like bell ringers, but we should all pull together in principle. Now, Theresa May and politicians. I don't care for politicians too much. Theresa May lost my respect. She said Brexit means Brexit and we're going to make a good job. Then she said 108 times we're going to leave by the 29th of March, and we didn't. Then she said no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, we've had a bad deal voted down 3 times, so I don't know why all they crying about a no deal is such a turbulent affair. No deal is better than a bad deal. So if politicians practice what they preach, we'd be out by now. And there was a joke about Theresa May. I don't think she'll be remembered very highly in political history. The joke on Radio 4 said, I looked up Theresa May on Google and nothing came up. Now, politics is all about half-truths, and when Boris Johnson is closing down Parliament for 5 days extra more than he should do, then the politicians will start telling each other half-truths. They know what it's like, the public receiving half-truths from them. And the last thing I'll say on this video is this. I learned this when I was 18 years old. Here's the joke, and it's true. Politicians are like bananas. They go in green, they come out yellow, and there's not one straight one amongst them. Here endeth the Turner rant.